And you two are about to launch a book tour together, and we are sort of stop one, right? Okay, no pressure for me.
You are stop one.
No pressure
before
for
the
me.
book even comes out. So
It's
thank you guys
amazing.
so much. It really does mean a lot to both of us that you would have us here on the 10th anniversary of a beautiful festival that you've built. We get to stay with two of my basically brothers who I grew up with. And I come from a mother who started 2 book festivals herself, the Texas Book Festival, which we will be going to in a couple weeks, or months rather. And don't worry, we'll still say that Harbor Springs is our favorite. And then the National Book Festival. So I just know that these weekends are so important for writers and the community and the indie bookstore, which your store has one of my favorite names of all time. So thank y'all for joining us this evening.
We're so glad, so glad. And Jenna, I want to start with you to kind of table set this conversation, because before you were head of an imprint, you have been in publishing for a long time. You are a published author yourself. You started, as we heard, Kate mentioned, Read with Jenna. I'm so curious, you have been a champion of not just reading, but writing and cultivating conversations around books. Was it your mom? Who inspired that in you?
Well, yes, my mom definitely did, but I also had, and I thought a lot about my grandmothers when I was starting Read with Jenna, because I'd lost both of my grandmothers, whom I'm named after Jenna Welch, who's my mom's mom, and then obviously Barbara, you know who she's named after. And they died within a year of each other. And during that year, I lost also my grandfather in that year, and it was, luckily, I can't believe I got to have them till I was in my mid-30s. Most people do not get that. But I really contemplated as I was grieving these women who shaped me since the day I was born. My mom was a librarian. Her cat, when we were born, was named Dewey, after the Dewey Decimal System. And always the diplomat, when we were born, she was like, okay, baby A is gonna have Barbara, because it starts first in the alphabet, and the baby B, which was me, was gonna be named Jenna. So, when you're named after women and they become so much of your day in and day out, you really think about them. And both of them were huge readers. My Barbara Bush was famously a huge reader, but my grandmother Jenna read just as much. And after I lost them, I thought about it. I have this theory that we all read for different reasons, and maybe different reasons during our life. But I kind of thought about them as readers. And I still have letters with my grandma Barbara where she would send me a book, or I'd leave her a book and she'd write me a review. And I thought my grandmother Barbara, she was well-traveled. She went everywhere in the world. Her husband was, the ambassador to China, and then the vice president and the president. She got to meet all sorts of people. But she also lived in West Texas by herself, moved away from her family. She lost a daughter to leukemia. And she has written and talked to us about years of depression. And even though she had tons of friends, I feel like she read for company, as a solace. And then my grandmother Jenna, which couldn't have been any more different than my grandmother Barbara. She lived in West Texas, and my grandpa was a home builder. She lived in the same house that he built for my grandmother and my mom until she moved into the retirement community. She always wanted to travel. She had a National Geographic subscription that we would sneak in to her little office and look at. And she was a naturalist. She collected rocks, but she didn't have the same means. And so she read to escape and see the world. And I just find that no other hobby, and probably I'm partial because I'm obsessed with it, gives us these different intimate reasons for being part of them. I'm obsessed with mahjong now. I have a real addiction. But I don't have some deep, profound relationship with it. I just like to go play it, And I think, so they definitely inspired me. My grandmother Barbara Bush had a needle-pointed pillow that said, "Reading is sexy," on her, and it is sexy.
It is sexy.
And Ariel's been to my house. I've been to, and then when she passed away, I don't know what happened to the pillow, and it devastated me because I was like, wait, did nobody think I would want the Reading is Sexy pillow? But then luckily somebody made me a Reading is Sexy pillow so I can horrify my 3 children.
It's great. It's great. That's your job.
On the regular.
Yeah, that's your job. That makes sense.
That was a long way of saying all the women in my family have definitely inspired this in me.
Yeah, I love this, and I'm gonna like switch up my questions a little bit because of something that you said, and I want to bring you into the conversation, Ariel. So you talked about, you know, your 2 grandmothers came from had very different life experiences, but they came to reading, and I think that that's something that is really important both in the imprint that we're going to talk about and in your book and your story, your personal story, Ariel. And you two have a really cute meet cute that we're also going to talk about in a minute. Hold on.
I like that you just called it a meet cute.
It is. It's like a publishing meet cute. It is. It's great. But you have, you know, you both came from like very different upbringings. Like, I don't have to tell you about Jenna's upbringing because you probably feel like you know.
You saw me get that minor in possession of alcohol.
We all got one.
You said it, not me. We've all been there. We've all been there.
Your dad just wasn't president, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. My mom's in the audience. She's like, thank God. But Ariel, you grew up an Air Force kid, so you moved around all the time. And I think actually what's really interesting about your story collectively as kind of publishing partners, but just the idea of your imprint too is like, you might have gone to reading, I don't know, I want to hear, like what was it about reading when you were young that really like moved you, and how is that like a shared experience even though your youth were so different?
So my dad was in the Air Force, and we moved every 2 years, and being the new kid, when you're young is fine, most people want to be your friend, but then you hit those like lovely preteen years, and people aren't as welcoming, and I started reading around 7. I read The Phantom Toll Booth, and I was instantly transported, and we had just moved, and I didn't like my teacher, we weren't meshing, and it like created this instant like friendship for me. And then I took that every time I moved, I would read a book, I would go back to my comfort books, and it was my way of not feeling alone and being a perpetual new kid where I already knew the ending was coming too. So even all the friendships I made, like there was already an ending. Like it wasn't something where I knew we were gonna be friends forever. We didn't have the internet back then, so it wasn't like we were gonna stay in touch. And so for me, the thing that kept me going was having books that really allowed me to just escape and fall into and forget everything that I was dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
How about you?
Well, I was a dramatic child, which
we know.
I'm sure it doesn't surprise you. So, I mean, I loved reading these stories. I mean, I loved romance, actually, when I was young because no boys really liked me, you know? So I'd be like reading The Babysitter's Club and the Marianne versus Logan, which was the name of the one that I loved. And you know, I think I just loved a story. I love storytellers. I love to tell a story. Most of them are true. No, I think storytelling is this beautiful art that brings people together, you know? And so we would sit around, and my parents thought I was funny, so they'd be like, Jenna, come tell whoever that story you just told us, and I would like make them laugh. But sometimes that's tiring. So I actually am kind of an introvert, which nobody really believes, but you probably can see it.
I can see it.
You can see it, because we flew here together and she knows me a little bit. So that's the time when I can sort of turn off everything and be with the book. I also get obsessive. I'm reading a book right now that even we were at my friend's house and I like put my earphones back in to keep reading. So it's just really a addiction and a big part of my life.
Which makes total sense because now you are the head of an imprint that will be bringing books into the world, which is really exciting. Let's do like a little minute of publishing nerd out and explain in case people don't know.
Sure.
What is an imprint?
Yes. Well, this imprint, so, okay, an imprint is part of a publishing house that gets to kind of curate their list of books. And for years, I mean, we started the book club as a dare. My boss, who's my age, and my friend, I set her up with her husband, talk about a meet cute, and she was like, you know, there's 2 conflicting articles. One says our generation, she's probably 40, 7. Our generation is reading more than ever. Another one says we're reading less. And I was like, well, I know my friends love to read. And also, most importantly, we love book recommendations. I love it when my sister calls and is like, oh my God, have you read this? Or I saw a friend who works in publishing backstage, and we just talked about books like till we couldn't breathe, because I'm like, what's good coming out? That's exciting for me. And so we started the book club, and our mission has been to highlight debut and diverse workers, please help me, authors. And so they do work, though, pretty hard to write those books. You work a lot. She worked the entire plane ride. And so for years, people would say, you should start an imprint. You should start an imprint. And I was like, why would I do that? But when we settled, we had a meeting, and we settled on the fact that emerging writers need a spotlight. Writers, and emerging means debut, but also writers that have been at it and haven't had the attention. Sometimes they lose their publishing deals. And so once I sort of dug into the statistics, I was like, well, I can be that spotlight, and I want to be. I love doing this. And so we started 1,000 Voices books, not even, probably a year ago, not long ago. We now have 14 books, maybe more. Julia can yell if we have more. And it's so much fun, and we work under Penguin Random House, so I work with editors there, but I read every single thing. We talk about the list as a whole and making sure we have different types of titles, and it's been really, really wonderful. I hope that's a good explanation.
No, it's great, because one of the things that I think is so amazing about someone who cares and has spent the last 6 years really not just bringing books to readers, but the discussions to readers, that you're bringing new voices to the table as part of that. That's amazing.
And also giving voices that have been here a spotlight if they haven't gotten them.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And one of our missions was to be with authors throughout their careers, to give Ariel this huge spotlight so that when her next book publishes in 6 months, which it will, which is insane and speaks to her prolificness, she won't need me as much, because she will have all of you who will have read this and been dying to get your hands on the second one. And we already know that exists, because anybody that's read this can't wait you've read it. You can't wait for the next.
Yes, and I know we're going to talk about that in a minute too. Can you just share, because I love the 1,000 Voices tagline. Do you have it on?
Do I have it on
tell
report?
You if you don't have it.
It's because you tell it to me, because what? One story
inspires 100 conversations.
No, I don't know. I don't know. By the way, I don't have my tagline memorized. Is that embarrassing?
It's not. I have it. So here we go. One story inspires 100 conversations that inspire 1,000 voices, which is...
should I memorize that?
Yes, you should, because I think Conform is going to inspire a lot more than 100 conversations. So before we jump into that, when you read this, did you just know, I know that the timing is a little bit you actually hadn't decided to start the imprint, or you hadn't made it official.
Let's talk about how we met, not to steer the conversation.
Steer.
Well, let's talk about how we met first, because
really
we met
cute.
Basically the weekend, and you ask her, but let Ariel talk, but we met the weekend before we had the meeting to start the imprint.
Yes,
so then I'll tell you about that.
Timing is perfect.
I'll tell you next.
So, Ariel, give us the meet cute.
Am I trying to moderate the moderator? That's what my dad does.
Good.
Tell me to stop.
Blink twice. if you're,
my dad does. I moderate conversations with my dad, and it's awful, because he's like, I'm like, do you? Yes. And I'm like, I didn't even ask the question. If I've turned into him, just kick me off the stage.
Okay. Got you. Okay.
I like when you talk a lot, because then I don't have to.
No, you have to.
So we met through our kids. Our youngest are the same age. Hal and George went to school together for 2 years. I think I met you once at one of the little kid events, but we hadn't really talked. And then George and Hal had really hit it off, and you invited us over for a play date. And I got distracted writing, which is just who I am as a person these days. And I texted her, and I was like, we're running late. If it still works, I would love to come over. She was like, yeah, come. And I had mentioned I was writing in the text. And when I arrived, George was having separation anxiety. And he was like, you're not going or I'll scream. So she was stuck with me. And she kindly asked me what I was writing, and up until that point, I had been querying, and I had only been telling people I'm writing a trilogy. I hadn't really gone into what I was actually wanting to do with it, because I thought, what person is going to look at a debut novelist and say, you haven't even written one book, but I'll trust you to write 9. And my New Year's resolution that year was to talk about what I was trying to do. And so when she asked, I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose here. I'm just going to go for it. So I told her how I was writing a trilogy of trilogies, that I was going to write 9 books. I told her all about the world. And Jenna very kindly said, send it to me. And at the time, I was like, she is just being nice. So I did send it to her, and she read it, and here we are, but it was a life-changing moment for me, and it's so, her love for books and how authentic she is about it and how she puts her time and effort into the books. It's every author's dream to have someone like Jenna in their corner. It truly is.
I'm probably going to cry. Okay, but so,
yes.
Yeah, you did it.
Yes.
And how amazing for any of you that have dreams. And I'm thinking of our friends here that opened Otis Harbor Springs, your amazing new hotel. If you keep a dream quiet, it's never going to come true. And so, Ariel wasn't talking, and Ariel is also so humble and lovely, and she probably, it probably killed her to even talk about it. Now that I know her, it probably killed her to even talk about it, but she did. And then serendipitously, and this is why I was like, ask her first, 2 days later was the day we had the meeting to talk about starting an imprint. So a woman, I always say a girl because she's just younger than me, who works on our team in LA was like, we were splitting up reading, and I was like, hey, Martina, let me get this book, because when Ariel, people hand me books on the street, I get 1 million books into my office. But the way that Ariel talked about, and this is what you were asking, about these characters and about this world, and how thoughtful her plan in publishing was, I was like, oh my gosh, I can tell by just her talking about this, and I read really widely, she is so thoughtful about this world. This could be really amazing. So I said after the meeting, I said, hey, Martina, will you take a look at this manuscript? I'm going to email it to you. And 2 days later, she called me and she's like, oh my gosh, Jenna, you have to read this. And I was so excited to hear that because we were starting something new. And so anyway, I read it so fast. I finished it. It was the same feeling that all of you have had, any of you who love to read, where it's like that kid with the flashlight under, staying up late. And when my kids do that, I'm like, I'm so proud.
Yes. Yes, I do.
When you fall in love with the world and you can't wait to know what's going to happen. Her pacing is incredible. Her characters are so interesting, and her world building, I've never read anything like it. She's also a beautiful, beautiful writer, and the themes, and you'll probably get to this, are so relevant, but it's in a totally different, it's in our world, but in a totally different time, so you can kind of escape and not feel like, oh, this is a one-for-one for the world we're living in. So I finished it at 5:30 in the morning on a treadmill, which back then, now I read on the treadmill all the time because I've started a publishing imprint. But this was the first book I've ever finished while exercising, and it says everything because it is so good. I can't wait for you all to read it. And it's been so fun to get to hear from readers, whether they work on our team or they've had advanced copies, about how much they love it. I wish I could read. Some of these indie bookstore owners texted me, my mom just passed away and you sent me a conform and I read it on the whole plane ride home, and I just want to tell you thank you so much. It was exactly what I needed. It's brilliant, and I can't wait to finish it. And I think that's what books can do, and this one is exceptional.
This is a very good segue, Ariel. Are you ready? I'm ready. So you're going to be on tour, doing the pitch, telling people about the book. What do you want people to know about Conform? And you should hold it up because it is beautiful. And
you want me to hold it your hand model?
Yeah, like Vanna.
Look how pretty it is.
It's beautiful.
And so all of you are getting one of these. And
there's a map inside.
Oh yeah, and there's a map, but also look how pretty the end papers are.
Oh my
I'm a
gosh,
nerd.
Beautiful.
You can't even see it. But there's a map of the world. Okay, Ariel, go ahead.
Okay. Do you want me to give you my elevator pitch?
I want
everybody?
you to
Yes.
give your elevator pitch, but also feel free to go a little deeper. We've
Okay.
got the time.
So Conform is a book, like Jenna said, that takes place in the real world, but it takes place in the future, post a world war that almost wipes out all of humanity. And we find this humanity 200 years post this war, and they have rebuilt, but your worth is now in your genes. So you are either a genetically elite and you live in the clouds, a minor defect and you live on the surface, or you're a major defect and you live beneath. Everything you do, everything you have is monitored through your genetic status, and everybody has a chip in their arm called a mind chip. And this mind chip gives everybody your vitals, but it also tracks everywhere you go. So there's a big, big brother moment to this book. And this book follows Emmeline, who is a minor defect, as she enters a procreation contract because marriage, love, and family unit has been destroyed as we focus on repopulating. And she gets a contract with an Elum, who is the ruling class of the city, and you watch as she goes up into their clouds and finds out that it's not as glamorous as she thought it was. I started writing this during COVID, and I had just had my second son, and I was hit with some terrible postpartum depression, and it was like a really hard time for me, and this is my escape. So I was able to escape into this book, and I hope you guys can too. But I was really had a lot of inspiration because we were all in this time where there was so much divide during COVID. Everybody had different stances on just about everything, and I felt like there was just so much getting lost in the gray. And for anybody who has read it, the minor defects wear gray, and that was inspired by that. As you saw the two sides, the majors and the minors, kind of fall victim to everything the Elum had put forth in this world. So
it's exceptional. And
Except
I've
for I
never
cried.
No, you're allowed to cry. She's like, I never cry. I'm like, I always cry. We're a perfect team.
Yeah, have you been trying to get me to cry since
I'm
the
so
beginning?
I don't. You're not dehydrated. I'm so happy.
We got the first tears.
And it's
guys.
also like she's looking like ashamed, and I just tears just flow freely.
I love it. I want to just talk about a little bit. You knew 9 books. That is a very ambitious publishing goal when you're starting out with book 1. The next book, which you hinted is coming out in 6 months, is not in linear order. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes. So the book is titled Conform, and it's something I struggle with. So I did not conform. And I decided to...
We have our text group is called the Non-Conformist.
This world is so controlled that the idea of getting information in an authentic way to a subset of the society that doesn't have access felt really difficult. And so when I was planning this all out, I could see the prequel origin story so clearly, and I was like, this is its own trilogy. And so I started writing it, and I just think it's really neat for the reader to kind of be almost more informed than the main character in this, and you get to find it all out, and it highlights Conform in a totally different way. So when you do read Beneath, you will probably go running back to Conform because there are so many Easter eggs in there. And
So Beneath takes place, tell when Beneath takes place.
Beneath takes place about 7 years post the World War. So it is...
So 200 years before.
Yeah,
but
200 years before this. It's very desolate. It's very dark. I like to say that it's the other side of the coin. We all love to look at the hopeful, shiny side, and I think Conform really highlights that. There's so many fun scenes and fun places. There's beautiful gowns. It's very lavish. And Beneath is the other side of that, the side that we all try to hide, the things that really can keep you up at night. It focuses a lot on grief. And so I just thought it was such a cool way to do it, to pair these two and have these two totally different heroines intertwine, and how past and present can still affect the story. The past is still talking even after it's gone.
Oh, that's really great.
And she's already written Beneath, and it publishes in March. So that talks to how amazing she is. And then 6 months after that, the second book of this comes out.
Are you done?
Shh.
We're close.
I mean, that's
She
great.
was working
We're
on it on the
close.
airplane.
I was working on it on the airplane.
I think that one of the things that I actually teared up about watching you two talk on a Facebook Live that you did together was when you were talking about the prequel and you were talking about people coming back to conform. You said, you know, they'll come to this, they'll want to come back because they're going to have a different perspective. And I think that that's a lot of what you have talked about, Jenna, you know, just with Read with Jenna, with Thousand Voices, is that like reading and then talking about it, doing what we're doing here this weekend, it not just like allows us to see and understand ourselves better, but really opens our perspective on the world. So because Jenna did a good job moderating the moderator, we're going to talk about themes now. So let's talk a little bit about the themes that you see, you know, and Jenna, you can answer, or Ariel, if you want to jump in right away in Conform.
Do you want me to
Jump
start?
in and then I'll...
Okay. There's a lot about self-expression or self-identity and
Talk about her job.
her job. Okay.
See, I can't help it.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I'm your stage mom.
I need it. So Emmeline works in the ancient archives, and she sorts ancient relics, all art pieces that the Elum are sorting for destruction or to save that have any ties to the past. And she struggles with this, obviously, the title. And she goes through all these art pieces, and it awakens this part of her that realizes while they have this chip in their arm has like eradicated illness, it's eradicated like increased longevity. There's so many wonderful things within their city, and yet everything that went into making those art pieces is gone. And so she sorts through them, and she is, you know, tasked with destroying these parts, and it causes her to question everything within the society.
And especially the ones that remind the society of love, right? Especially the ones of either a mother's love for their child or romantic love is not the currency. That's not what you're searching for in this society. It's just about how to populate. So it's, which of course you can't really kill love. That's the beauty of it.
You can't.
And that's why I'm not sure what happened in the introduction, but I think somebody held up two signs. Team Hal or Team Colin, did they do that? That's because there's an exceptional love triangle in here, ladies. And for your gentlemen, they'll be happy too, okay?
There is a love story. And that is also one of the themes. Duality is a big part of this whole entire book.
Yeah,
it's about
say more.
Yeah, it's about the idea that there's not just one perspective. And each of these men, while I did try to make the love triangle very fun and sexy, it's also about the idea that these two men represent not just only different fractions within the society, but they also represent very different paths for Emmeline and bring out different sides of her. And so she's got one who is part of the Elum ruling class. He's polished, he's, you know, incredibly good looking and kind when he wants to be. And then you have the flip side, who is a major defect, and he is a relentless flirt. He's very fun to write. And he kind of challenges everything she thinks. So it's a way to kind of mirror the duality that she sees within the society when she goes up. And she thinks her whole life that's all she's ever wanted. And then she gets there, and all the gowns, all the stuff is still beautiful, but it may not be what she wants.
And I think there's complexity to all of the characters, so no one feels like, you know, I think that sometimes in a dystopian or a fantasy or even just a straight romance, you kind of are like, oh, I get who this is going to be.
Girl
right?
or
It's
the bad guy.
Yeah. That's not this.
No, I was very intentional about the fact that I did not want a good or bad guy. Everybody has good and bad traits. I mean, all of us here do as well, whether we like to admit it or not, and this is supposed to be a reflection of that. And some characters make terrible decisions and have terrible roles, but they're not terrible people. And I wanted to bring that into a conversation and to bring the depth into a person. And for me, when I read a book, I love pacing, I love so many things, but it's the characters that stay with me at the end. They're the ones I think about. They're the ones who send me back for a reread. And so I really wanted my characters to have weight and to feel real and to struggle. That was another big thing. So there is one of my favorite lines in that book talks about, you thought there was a good and bad guy, didn't you? and there isn't. So that was part of it.
I feel like these are good life reminders for all of us. We're getting a little bit of life coaching up here, especially in today's world. And I want to talk about that a little bit. Like, we live in a society that's faster paced than ever. We are all on sort of like TikTok algorithm speed. And you're creating an imprint that's asking people to slow down and not just read, but like, I'm sure that just like Read with Jenna, there will be book club guides, there will be conversations. A book like this will definitely inspire a lot of book clubs to be talking. Like, what do you think the role of fiction is right now in where we are in today's world and why it's so important?
Well, I said it earlier, but we know that reading fiction helps build empathy. You're stepping in the shoes of other people, you know? And if we're not doing that in our own lives, then at least we can while we read, you know? And there was a whole study about, and I don't need to get into this, but why men should read more fiction, because it builds empathy. And I think we can all remember, I remember reading The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I think I was in 8th grade. And I was like, oh, wow, books can do that? Books can put me in Piccola, shoes and take me to a place and show me how other people live and teach me about the differences and build empathy. And I think that's been like the most remarkable thing about building a national book club is there are so many people who are interested in having conversation. I think if you turned on the news, you would think we live in a society that doesn't ever want to talk. And obviously there's some truth to that, but you have a book festival, that's not all true. People long for conversation. They long to be challenged. They long to read about different parts of the world or people that are different for them. And I think, we need empathy more than ever. We all know that. And so reading is one of the only ways that I can think, besides service, which frankly, they go hand in hand, that can do that. And both of them are at too low for my likings, if I'm honest, I think. And the truth is, we all can put our phones away, and we know they're addicting. We should be teaching our kids the love of reading, even if that means we're taking their iPads out of their room, which I do constantly, and my youngest don't even have it, but my 7th grader doesn't have a phone. I'm one of the strict moms that I never thought I would be, but therefore, I'm not that strict. Y'all know me, I'm not that strict. I'd rather her mess up in the real world, right? Like I did. And so, she doesn't have that, so I know she's reading, and we're reading books together, and then we're watching the series, and there's such a beautiful feeling as a mom to lay next to my 3rd grader or my 7th grader. Poppy's in 4th grade, so don't quote that. 4th grader and 7th grader, and have them read while I read, or read to Poppy, or have Poppy read to me. And we have a son the same age as we obviously mentioned, and we're getting into bed with Hal, who is also the name of a character in this book. But let me just state,
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose. She'd written him first, and you should talk about that moment.
Yeah. Some characters come into my mind with names very easily, others don't. Hal was one that did not come easily, and I was watching Megamind with George. I don't know if anybody's seen it.
Sound like one guy right in the front loved it.
He's seen it. The bad guy in it is named Hal, and I was like, what a waste of a great name. And I was like, writing later that night after I put my kids to bed, and I tested it out, and I was like, that's the name, that's it. Couple months down the road, George gets in the car and he's like, I have a new friend named Hal. And I was like, oh, I don't think there's a kid named Hal in your class. And I pulled up the class list. There wasn't. There were 4 Henrys that year, though.
Hal's real name is Henry.
And so I was like, you don't know what you're talking about because you're 3. And I also took it as that moment where I was like, this is the universe pointing me in the right direction. This is it. I'm going to stick with it and go.
He had an imaginary sexy friend named Hal.
That's it. Or he can magically read at 3 and he's prolific and he saw it over my shoulder.
A savant.
He's a savant. And so I didn't realize until I think it was 18 months later just how much that really was. It felt like the universe was pointing me in the right direction. However, it did make me uncomfortable because there are romance scenes in this. And I handed it to Jenna, and I was like, do I change the name of this character? Because, like, her kid's name.
And I was like, no, you don't. I know you didn't name this character after my son.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness also that you loved the book. This is a big, scary risk for you to take when you're like in real life connection and your kids are friends and you're handing something in. I also just want to say, this wasn't like you just sat down and wrote it, you were done. Yeah. Jenna was the first person you gave it to, right? Can you talk a little bit about your...
Yeah. So like I said, I started writing this during COVID, and I didn't know what I was doing. I did not go to school to be a writer. I actually changed my major from professional writing to business communication because I just didn't think this was ever going to happen. And so I wrote this book. I then, without editing it at all, which now feels so dumb, I started querying. I just was so enthusiastic. I had done this. I had always wanted to do it. Someone was going to say yes. It was going to be immediate, and everybody said no, which they should have. That wasn't the right thing, and it wasn't in the right shape that it should have been. I went back. I rewrote the book, and I started querying again, and the same thing happened. There's just no's. And then I got to the point where I got a no, and I was like, I believe in this so strongly that I don't care. The right person will come along, and I started writing my second book. And then the last no I got before this happened with Jenna, I got it, I sent it to my husband, I was like, it's another no, and I actually wrote the ending of my second book. So it was not an easy road, and I just fumbled my way through it. And it felt, when Jenna did text me and was like, I think we have something that we could do here. I mean, it's one of those like fairy godmother moments where someone comes over and they're like, you get everything you want. And it felt so special to me. But this was not the first person I had mentioned it to. I had mentioned it to countless people. And when we started talking about it, I wasn't pitching it. Yeah. It wasn't one of those things where like, I hope this works with Jenna and I hope this is a thing. It was just...
You were late.
Yeah, I was late, I wrote, and then I just started talking about it, and like, I was like, this is good place as ever, right? If I can tell Jenna about this, who is in literature, I can tell other people about what I really want to do with this book. And she listened to all of it.
Hoda always says that if you don't whisper your dreams out loud, they're never going to come true. And she said, I just did a book event with her, which reminded me of this, but she said, she was walking down the street with her friend, and her friend said, well, you and I, we never wanted to be moms. And she had never said it out loud because she just didn't think it could happen. And she stopped, and she said, well, actually, I did want to be a mom. Like, I do want to be a mom. And that changed everything for her. After she said it out loud, things started happening. The universe pointed her. She saw that Sandra Bullock had adopted 2 kids, and she Googled, how old is Sandra Bullock? And she was her exact age. And then she saw another thing, and then now she has, adopted 2 little girls. And I think it's so true. If you aren't brave enough to say what you want and then work, she's working like crazy. She's prolific. And work again and re-edit it. And then even after I read it, she worked with an agent to re-edit it. And then we are now and then that's before it even went to the publishing house, which it was then re-edited 3 more times. It's not just serendipity. It's also that with really hard work. And then look what happens.
Look what happens. Here we are. So we are at our last question before we're going to go to Q&A. And, you've talked a little bit about being here. We've talked about building community around books. The Harbor Springs Festival of the Book wants to bring readers to a beautiful part of the world we all love. But I think that the other thing that we really have always, I know that we envisioned early on for this festival was what happens when you can be together for a weekend in conversation and getting to have this little bit of behind the scenes peek into creative minds and creative sparks. So just to round us out here, can you talk a little bit about your process as a writer and your process as helping bring a book to life?
My process is very chaotic. I wish I could tell you that it was pretty and Instagram worthy. It's not. I started writing this when both my kids were at home full time because it was COVID. So I learned to write I call myself now a sprint writer. So I wrote during that quick nap time moment. I wrote in the pickup line, which I still do because that is a sacred 30 minutes of my life. And if I don't do it, I'm going to be on Instagram or something ridiculous. So I still, to this day, write in the pickup line, and I get some of my best work out there. So I highly recommend it.
She's brought George to a play date, and she said, "Can I stay in my car and write in your driveway?" And I said, "You can, but you can also come into my house." And she said, "No, I prefer to sit in my car."
I think that comes from the fact that before this I was a stay-at-home mom, which I loved. And so something about being at home, sometimes it's really hard for me to write because I'm sure all the other mothers in here can attest to this. There's a running list in my head of all the things. Someone's shoes don't fit, someone needs this, someone's got something, we're out of milk or something else I need to do. And so sometimes writing in my car is the best place for me to write because there's nothing to do there except for maybe throw away old chicken nuggets or something that smells in my car. So yeah, that has been my writing process. And then the other thing I do that I think helps make writing very meditative for me, and it's why I think I can write as prolifically as you say I do.
She's really fast. She works a lot.
Is I listen to music while I write, but I listen to the same song on repeat until I finish a scene. So whatever the scene has a song, and sometimes I don't know it's going to be the song. I can hear it on Spotify or Pandora, and I'm like, that's it. And funny enough, the entire Beneath trilogy came from one single song that I heard, and I stopped. I burned dinner, so we all ordered takeout that night. I walked away, I found my computer, and I just started typing one scene that birthed the whole thing, and it was from one song. So I listened to the same song on repeat. And it kind of allows they say that when you shower, when you drive, you can have really great thoughts. And it's because your working brain is preoccupied and your subconscious brain can be free. And for me, when I listen to music, that is what it does for me. And so that is my only requirement. I can write anywhere. I've written in the car, I've written on planes, I've written while the kids, throw a football and break a chandelier. I can write in any environment, but it's chaotic, and I don't sit down and make it cute. It's just a mess, but it works.
I'm do you get tired of those songs?
Yes.
You listen to the same song for hours at a time? There's some you had to retire.
Well, when the scene's done, I then can't hear it for a while. I even if I love the artist and it sucks when the song is a song I really, really love. And I'm I know when I'm done with this, I'm not going to be able to hear you for a while. And then my family knows too, my husband in particular, knows when I'm writing because I'll have the same song for everybody in the house to listen to. And he's please end it. Do you need more time to write? What do you, just change the song. And so it's something I love, and I am very excited for some new music that's coming out soon because I'm sure it'll help make some new scenes.
We have about 14, I think, as I said, all different types of genres. We take that really seriously, and because I like to read everything, So we're we don't have a good mystery, we don't have a great literary thriller. Let's look for that. We don't have a book from this perspective. Let's look for that. So we're kind of constantly looking, and then I'm constantly reading. I did tell Ariel today because I have a meeting about a book on Monday, so I needed to finish a book today, which I will, because I have this app called Speechify, which I'm obsessed with. Have you ever heard of Speechify? Do you use it to read like a madman?
Yep.
I use it to read like an absolute madman. I probably will read 2 books between today and tomorrow. Which has been really helpful in sort of scouting things out. I still read every single night before I go to bed. By the way, Ann Patchett, who's the patron saint of reading, told me this quote. I don't even know if it's true, but I'm just gonna pretend it. Modeling reading for your children is just as important as reading to them. So my parents, every night, they would go to bed with books, and I know some of y'all didn't think my dad could read, but he could. And they would go to bed, each of them, with their book in their hands. And so it just became part of what is in our DNA, what our family does, you know? And so anyway, and I'm sure I'm modeling so much reading that my children are going to rebel or something, but for now, that's great. So I'm reading all the time. I'm talking with editors, which is so much fun. 99.9% of the time, we'll call and have a book conversation, which feels like a book club. So how lucky am I? And I'll say, I just finished it. Here are my notes. And then they will say, we just finished it. Here are my notes. And 99% of the time, they coincide. And then I'll say, we'll meet with the authors and we'll talk about the books. And then now we're publishing one. So it's really exciting.
That's amazing. Well, thank you both. I think we're going to, Amy, are you on deck here to be our incredible question
Me and Michelle.
asker? And Michelle,
I mean, y'all,
all right. So
this is like when they turn the lights on in the bar.
Yeah. It is.
Can you please turn the lights down?
Okay, so if you have questions, raise your hands.
Y'all don't need to all ask at the same time, guys.
Okay.
Oh,
You might just talk.
Is
Yep.
it working?
Yep.
Hi, thanks for being here. A lot of us find books from our friends or from, like I just read Buckeye because
wasn't Buckeye so
it
good?
was really good. It was
Y'all,
really
if you
good.
haven't read Buckeye, I don't know what you're
it's
waiting
good.
for.
Yeah,
And men
yeah.
love it too. My dad read it, my husband read it. It has sort of a historical fiction angle to it. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's how we find books. I appreciate what you're doing for us. But how do you find books? You probably have a team, but you probably find them, I don't know, like how do you do it?
I'm like, via play dates.
It's a great way to do it.
But typically, I do have a team of people that work with me at NBC, and then also I have one person who's here named Julia that works with me on the imprint. So we're a very small but mighty team. And we, agents will send books our way. One of the things we're really excited about is bringing authors from other territories who have done really well in the UK or in Australia or in Africa, but haven't yet broken through in America. That's kind of an exciting idea. But agents, sometimes the publisher will write and will call and say, we've just read something, we kind of think it's something you'd be obsessed with. But at this point, it's really mainly via agents.
Got one right up here.
Ariel, I'm curious, you were talking about the music you listen to. Are you able to read other books while you're drafting, especially if you're fast drafting? Mm-hmm. And do you have to go off genre, or how does that work for you in the writing process?
So this is probably the saddest part of getting this and having this career. I cannot read while I write. I am in the longest break from reading I have ever had since I was about 7 years old, and I have not read a book in a year and a half, and it is killing me. So I am incredibly jealous of all the books that I see Jenna read and hear about, and my TBR is now forever long. So when I finish this next book, I'm going to take a month off, and I'm going to devour as many books as I can.
She's not, by the way, when I wrote my memoir, I couldn't read either, because for me, and I don't know if this is the reason for you, for every author it's different, but I would read and I'm like, God, that sentence structure is so beautiful. And then I'd start to write and I'm like, I'm totally mimicking that person. This is so weird.
It's a big fear of your subconscious, kind of like, you don't mean to, but
No,
you're
I'm not-
afraid
it's-
someone else's ideas are gonna like infiltrate yours. And then I'm also an obsessive reader. I devour books. I'm the person who goes to a midnight release. I will read a book in 24 hours. I will not put it down. I will forget that I have children, a husband, everything. And if I do that while writing, I don't know when I would go back to it. So I have not read anything. I did pick up like a poetry book and read a couple poems, but other than that, I have not read, and it is besides my own words. And that's a little crazy feeling now, that how many times I've read my own words.
There are 3 Read with Jenna authors here this weekend. We should just mention that over your 10 years, you've had 11 of them, which is incredible. 3 are here this weekend who have written books that I'm obsessed with. Selby Van Plant wrote Remarkably Bright Creatures. Mm-hmm. And so she's here. Allegra Goodman, the Read with Jenna book that she wrote was called Sam. It's one of my all-time favorite books. She just told me she wrote Sam and the book she's here for now at the same time. She's an empty nester, so she's doing sort of what Ariel's doing. It's not normal. And then Nikki Ehrlich wrote The Measure. She's here for her book Poppy Fields. So go and see them tomorrow. They're incredible. They're incredible authors, all three of them. So make sure you show them some love.
Hi. I first want to congratulate you, Ariel, on your book coming out. And is Conform going to be done on audio? And if so, were you involved in picking the narrator or narrators?
It is going to be on audio, and I was involved in it, and the amazing Amanda Lee Cobb narrated it, and I got to hear a snippet actually before this trip, and it's so cool, and she did such a beautiful, beautiful job.
So download it now where you get your downloads.
Libro FM. And support your independent bookstores.
That's right.
Libro
Or bookshop.org.
Yeah, yep.
Sorry to stand up, but hi. My question's for you, Ariel. I think a couple of us were wondering, what was the song, if you can share that?
Yes, I was so hoping someone would ask that.
So it's a song for different scenes. I can probably tell you.
The one that spurred Beneath.
Oh,
Yes.
That one is called Repeat Until Death. It's
Sounds
dark, guys.
uplifting.
It's dark. No, actually the song is beautiful, and it's by Novo Amor. He's not making music right now, but if you listen to it, it is stunning, and it does have a very macabre name, but it is not a macabre. Oh, it's a little macabre. The book's macabre. But that was the song, and it's still my favorite, and I'll play it occasionally when I'm missing those characters as I'm back in the Conform world.
If I could ask a follow-up question. So is it more of an instrumental music that you're listening to, or do these pieces have lyrics to them that kind of inspire the story or the characters that you're writing?
That's a great question. It's a bit of both. So I don't know if anybody listens to NF. He is a rapper. So that is very heavy in lyrics, and he has some phenomenal lyrics. And so when I listen to him, he also has great beats, so like that drives me. It's more about the fact that it's what emotion it evokes in me. There's those songs that you listen to that no matter how many times you hear them, you get like goosebumps, or you remember something when you were a kid, and there's something so special to me about that. So I'm really looking for that feeling, for like a scene that I want to like punch the reader in the gut and like make your heart ache. Like I'll look for that song that like makes me feel that, and while I'm writing, I feel like I can be in that headspace and get those emotions onto the page better. And then the ones, there's, romance scenes.
Well, that's what I want to know. What are you listening to when you write the romance scenes?
A bunch of different stuff.
Today she's like, we're on an airplane with humans, obviously. And she was like, I think she was writing one of the romance scenes. And she's like, writing the romance stuff is the hardest for me. And I'm like, yeah, especially with like Grandpa Joe sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you.
I feel like I'm doing something like really naughty, and I have to like put my computer down all the time, but I can't write them at home because I have a 10-year-old son who is, if anybody has 10-year-olds, incredibly inquisitive and nosy and will read over my shoulder. So that is not the way I want him to have that conversation, or scar him that he has to talk about.
Judy Blume had that conversation with me, so it worked out fine.
Yeah, that one. I'll release that playlist at some time.
Yeah, she's gonna put the playlist out, so pay attention. I don't know. I'm like, she's gonna put the playlist out on her social media or somewhere.
Spotify, I think.
Oh, Spotify.
Anybody else?
We don't have to sit in a silent room.
All right. Well, no.
Thank you guys so very, very, very much for being here. I know. Thank you. This was wonderful.
I think Amy's gonna close us out.
We have a couple of housekeeping matters. Ariel has graciously pre-signed book plates for all of you. And when you leave the auditorium this evening, you will be handed a book plate. She will also be available to personalize them in a line out right across from the cafeteria area. So thank you, Ariel, for that. Quickly, remember the high school here has a parking shuttle. So if you want to park up here tomorrow, look in your program. They're running shuttles throughout the course of the day, in the morning and at noon and in the afternoon to go back. But if you're challenged by parking and don't want to worry about downtown, park up here in the high school and our parking shuttle, the Nubs Knob bus, will pick you up. And you can also walk down the boardwalk if you haven't done that to get to sessions tomorrow. Just for grins, who is attending the festival in this room for the very first time? Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here, but for our new ones as well. So at this time, Jenna, thank you.
Thank you all so
Thank
very,
you so
very
much.
much. Thank you.